So I was recently in the Canadian Rockies, ran up to like the Lake Louise, Banff area, and mostly because it was fall color. Wanted to shoot some fall color. I know I mostly do black and whites, but I do still like color. So I went up there with the intentions of kind of shooting a lot of panoramas, things like that. And a few months ago, I picked up one of these. The local camera store had one. This is the Nodal Ninja 4, so it's fairly old, but it was super cheap, so I picked it up. The reason I purchased one of these is mostly for my cityscapes. What it does, it allows you to remove the parallax error when you're doing a panorama. So when you have something really close in the foreground and something far in the background, as you're moving your camera and gets pano, those two things move at different speeds. And so they line up weird, and Photoshop can't quite figure out how to put your pano together properly. One of these solves that problem. So you have to do a little bit of testing. So basically I just went outside my front porch and did some testing there. I've got like a signpost close on the sidewalk, and I've got some signposts in the distance. And so I just set up my camera to where as I rotated this around like this, then those two posts never moved. Like they always stayed in the same spot with each other. So you don't need one of these for panoramas. I'd say probably 97% of my panoramas I don't need one of these. It's just for very specific situations where this is very beneficial. And so being up in the Canadian Rockies was one of them, because I've got like some trees and some fall foliage really close to my camera. And then I have, you know, the mountains and stuff in the background. So I want to go over things that I ran into that I wasn't even thinking about when you're doing these panos. Basically, as you're doing your pano, I always try and mostly do vertical panos. And that way I can get top to bottom, lots of height, and then I just take the photos side to side and do like 7 or 8 of them. And then when I get back in Photoshop, I stitch them together, and that's how I do them. And that's one nice thing about these nodal sliders and nodal rails and things, is the base here at clicking, they're I think 15-degree clicks. And so if you want to do a multi-level pano, then you can do like the bottom section, go back to where you started, and every photo is going to be at the same exact spot as you go around, because it's getting into, like, it sets its position. So makes it really nice for that. It also has a bubble level, and so you can make sure that everything's good and level on your tripod. You do have to take your ball head off and then mount this directly to the top of your tripod. But like I said, 97% of panoramas, you don't need them. It's just that very small few that they work out really good. So I want to go through a couple panos on my computer here, and I'll show you some of the things I ran into, things I didn't even think about when I was out there shooting, which I usually do. I don't know why I didn't this time. So now that we're in my computer, so this is one from Bow Lake with Crowfoot Mountain in the background. And as I scan through, you can see each one. And this was taken on the nodal rail. And the reason is, you can see how close this foreground is to me versus the mountain in the background. And so by not having that slider, it would have like thrown things off. Things wouldn't have lined up properly. So these all ran through DxO Pure Raw first. So you can see how clean they are. Like there's no ISO noise. And it was an ISO 320. So I like the DxO program for that. So let's go ahead, select them all, then right click, merge to panorama. So now that's done merging. And I don't know what happened with Photoshop, some new version. See how this side is really dark and has this weird line, this side's really bright. It's only in this little panorama merge preview, so I don't quite know what that's about. And then one thing you can see with the nodal sliders, you can see how even the panorama is, right? It's a lot of times what I found without it, the whole photo kind of starts here and kind of dives down on one side. But this slider seems to kind of take care of that problem. So yeah, obviously you have the corners here just due to a wide angle lens, but it makes it very square, makes it very easy to make a pano. So we'll click merge. Then we'll name it, I don't know, Bow Lake, whoops, Bow Lake Pano 5, just something, because I've already done this. So yeah, you can see this. Yeah, it's all weird over here. Don't know why Photoshop is now doing that, but once it's done making it, you can see it all goes back to normal. And then let's do a crop. So with my panoramas, I like to do a 2:1 format. All my panels are the same, it's all that. Some people like the 3:1, some people like 4:1. I just like the 2:1 format. It just works well for me, so all my panels are the same. So in my presets here, I come down to 2:1. Then you can see we still have some edge here, so let's just bring this in a little bit, and this in a little bit, then we'll pull this down until, because otherwise we just have a lot in the foreground that we don't need and not much in the sky. So I think we'll go with something like that. And I think we may need to straighten it a little bit. So if you go back to the crop, you can click the guidelines here. Then we'll just come across right on the lake, actually apparently just above the lake. So something like that. And then we'll just pick one of these posts on the bridge here to use. Something like that. Make it square. Then there, done. Right, that's a nice panorama. Yeah, then we go in and we edit from there. And so I've got it set on adaptive color, but if I go back to Adobe color, you can see like this how it really was. Right, kind of, we had a little bit of smoke in the air, you know, so the sunset or sunrise was really shining through that, the haze. So I like this adaptive color. Works really well as a starting point. Like I said, this is where my panoramas always start, a 2:1 format. Then I'll begin editing from here. I want to go through another panorama that I did. I'll show you the mistake I made in doing this. Okay, so now that we have the images all brought up into Photoshop and Adobe Camera Raw, you can see the same thing, ISO 500, but I ran it through DxO. You can see how much it just really cleaned it up. So let's go ahead and merge all of these. And I'll show you what I did wrong. So I can find my little button on my, problem with these little pen tablets, trying to find the button to do things with. And you can see it's weird. It's like this one doesn't have that dark section on this side. So I don't know, must be a new Photoshop feature. Okay, now that the image is merged, so now we will go to the crop, go to 2:1. Okay, let's bring this in to get rid of the edge here. Bring this in to get rid of this edge. Now you can see the problem. So if I have no room in my image, right? Because if I bring it up to bring in the foreground here, I lose my mountain. If I bring it down, I cut out some of this little creek slough thing. So basically what I didn't do is I didn't zoom out far enough when I was doing my panoramic images. So in order to make this image work, I have to go to basically a 2:3 format. I don't know why it's so small. Let's just go full and then basically bring it down. And this is an image I could get without doing a panorama. This is basically the 2:3 format in your camera. So make sure when you're doing panoramas that you zoom out far enough so that you have room to make the panorama that you want. Whether it's a 2:1 or a 3:1 or a 4:1, you have to zoom out. That is where I screwed up on this image. So I like the image, so this one actually is on my website, but it's not a panorama like I was hoping, because it just doesn't work. I just stayed zoomed in too far. So think about that when you're making your panoramic images. How far do I need to zoom out to make it work? Preferably zoom out extra far, just to make sure you have enough room. Don't do what I did. Don't make a pano and then realize you screwed up. Oh, I could have just taken a single image to do this, because it's 2:3 format. That's how most of my images are. So, like I said, it was supposed to be a pano, but I just didn't zoom out far enough. Things to think about when making a pano. And with this one, the reason I use my slider here is you can see this tree is right here in the foreground. You can see the mountain is way in the background. Then you have all these other trees. And where I was standing, if I wouldn't have used that nodal rail, then this tree in the foreground would move at a different speed than the mountain in the background, and Photoshop would struggle trying to line them up. It's very few instances where you need these. So, like I said, the shop, the camera store in Seattle had it for like, I don't know, $100, $150, something like that. Super cheap. So, whereas like a brand new one, I think they're up to like version 8 or something, or 7, I don't know. It's like $700, $800. I don't think it's worth that kind of money. So if you can pick up a used one. And then if you're don't have your camera on vertical, if you're just doing a horizontal, you can take this part off and just use the part that mounts to your tripod. And then you just set your camera into the slide, and then you slide it depending on where you need to set it, and then you just spin it from there. So, you know, it works either way, whether it's horizontal or vertical. But like I said, when you're doing panoramas, make sure you zoom out far enough to make sure you have enough room to crop to the format that you like. 2:1, 3:1, whatever it is. Don't waste the time doing panoramas and then come to find out you screwed up and now it's just a normal photo that you didn't have to do pano for. So, live and learn. You know, I did get quite a few panos, so it did work out pretty well for me on this trip up to Canada. So I think that's all I like to go through. I think next week we'll go through how I edited some of my images. And so I think that's it for now. I just wanted to do a quick video on how to make panoramas and how not to make panoramas. You know, depending on the format, zoom out far enough so that you get all the image that you want and in the crop format that you want to use. And I'll see you in the next video.